So, lads, in my third "What the hell is going on in Seattle" video today, we have got another article by Roberta Rodriguez. And this one, I think, is genuinely, and I mean this, genuinely the worst of all of these. And I'm going to explain why. And so, if you've not seen this right here, this article, it's like, what the bleep is going on in Seattle. The entire article is basically digging to find the problem. For some reason, it's talking about a benchmark bonus check not achieved, and that this whole thing is implied that Jewell Loyd not reaching a benchmark for points in her Nike contract is why the investigation is being done for player mismanagement. Even though, like, if this is actually going to an investigation and they had players-only meetings during the year, until the very last day of the season, Jewell Loyd was 12 points off hitting that target. She was 12 over the course of the season. So, like, how exactly is there a season-long issue? Players-only meetings, splitting the team, not having NECA involved. What does that have to do with something that Jewell Loyd literally could have broken on the last game of the season? What does that whole through the season have to do with that? Irrelevant. Then it goes talking about Skylar Diggins, turbulent past coming into the present. What does Skylar Diggins' past have to do with anything? She was had an altercation with Taurasi. She had, like, both the Mercury and the Wings apparently screw with her through her pregnancy. What does that have to do with anything? And it says here somewhere, like, it says here, Storm fans in Seattle were not prepared for someone with the personality of Skylar Diggins. What does this have to do with anything? What does this have to do with anything? And I mean this. What does this have to do with the investigation? I'm sorry, Skylar Diggins could be an angel. If she was... I don't even know what Skylar Diggins has to do with this. This is an investigation on the coaching staff mistreating players. What does Skylar Diggins have to do with it? This is literally like a character reference, aka Jewell Loyd salty, Skylar Diggins actually isn't the problem. And the reality is, I don't know if Skylar Diggins is a problem. I don't care. What does that have to do with this? What is it? It is nothing. It has nothing to do with this. And then I'm not going to comment on everything you have posted, but you are posting lies. This is not journalism. Jade Lee English from Clutch Sports, Jewell Loyd's agent. And then Roberta says, I invite you to take a deep look into it. People from Jewell Loyd's inner circle saying that, blaming Noelle, calling her Noe. Obviously, you can see what side she's taking. On Jewell not meeting the bonus benchmark. That is important context for a situation. No, it's not. It is completely irrelevant. It is absolutely irrelevant. It is absolutely irrelevant if this was an issue, if this was an ongoing issue throughout the year. Hitting a benchmark is irrelevant. She was 12 points for the season off the benchmark. And then she basically told Jewell Loyd's agent that, you actually need to read more into this contract. She replies, I'm not going back and forth with you, and this will be my last comment. I think as someone who actually negotiated the contract can tell you and confirm that this statement is false, and whoever you're talking to doesn't have the right information. Mental. Absolutely mental. Like, you have got the agent of a player coming out to basically say, this is not journalism, you are literally just lying. And first of all, I really want to say this. Even if she's not lying, what does this have to do with anything? Like, I quote tweeted, and if you look at my profile, like, I basically got into a conversation with this journalist, and I'm like, I just said, 2 weeks ago, there are no issues with the Storm, which is what Roberta said, when Sabria Whitaker said that there are issues with Storm management, that the players, like, basically had staged a mutiny against the coaches and other players. Like, basically half the team and other half of the team staged a mutiny against the other half, like. And then she was like, no, it was fine. Like, there are issues, but, like, the coaches are fine. 3 days ago, she also said the Storm have years of mismanagement and issues. And then today, basically, it's all Jewell Loyd's fault. Responded with, if you're reading this and saying it's Jewell Loyd's fault and either reading comprehension, like, no, man, I read this. You have implied that it's all Jewell Loyd's fault. I said, if you're correct in that it's as simple as Jewell Loyd being salty, then I apologize, which I will. If it's as simple as that, I apologize. But I said here, the initial allegations that were put forward were much more than that. Talked about players being threatened, slurs, I didn't say this, but slurs being thrown at players, and there being a complete division of the team. What does that have to do with Jewell Loyd's Nike contract? I'm unfortunately able to write lengthy stories because I have a day job. I understand Twitter wants info to be laid out in a few characters. What are you talking about? You wrote, like, this is not a few characters. You went on a 400 words, like, you went on a 300 word talk about about Skylar Diggins' history. What does that have to do with anything? It has nothing to do with anything. Twitter wants to be, but is irresponsible and bad journalism. No, what's irresponsible and bad journalism is me saying, or is this, and I said it, it said the context is important. I said the context for Jewell is only important if it is provable that that is the reason why the investigation is happening. If that is not the reason why the investigation is happening, it is a completely irrelevant point. You are trying to pull out the freaking Chewbacca defense. You are trying to put out so much irrelevant information that it confuses the reader, and then they come out with Jewell Loyd bad. Like, you're almost, actually, yeah, you're almost coming out with the freaking Chewbacca defense. And then, I get what you're saying. A few weeks ago, people were upset that a head coach is being attacked unfairly. I brought up a situation maybe leading to that attack, and people don't like what they read. Can't win-win. I was like, it's not a lose-lose. I was like, not giving irrelevant information that can sway people's opinions on an individual one way or the other without actually talking about the situation, obviously, is not a lose-lose. Like, there's a reason why no one has an issue with Annie Constable breaking the story, because she broke the story. She didn't just go on the attack against Jewell Loyd. She didn't look for reasons, for negative character points against Jewell Loyd to make you automatically not take Jewell Loyd's side, when the reality of the situation is, by the actual allegations, it seems like it is literally half the team and half the team. Half the team basically staged a mutiny against the coaching staff and the other half of the team. And I said, I mean, Benji was like, I said negative things about Skylar Diggins. I was like, that's also irrelevant. Jewell and Skylar's personality is completely irrelevant to an investigation of the coaching staff. Like, that's the problem with all this. And that's the problem when it comes to some of this journalism, is it's all about who you like, who you don't like, personal relationships you have with players. It's like, if you have had a good experience with a player, you're automatically going to take their side. The reality of this is that obviously it's not the case. The reality of this is, Noel Quinn, the coaching staff, Skylar Diggins and Ekawumke, could be angels, and then half the team that are against them could be the reincarnation of the devil. If in this one situation, the people that are the quote-unquote good guys are wrong, then they're wrong. But it doesn't matter. Someone's past does not matter for this exact situation. And that's the problem with this. It's the problem with this. I'm not even going to call it journalism. And that's where the whole issue is that a lot of these journalists, they have relationships with these players, they have relationships with these teams, and it does cloud them, even if they're trying not to be biased. You can even, if you want to argue this isn't biased, that, I'm just talking information, it is irrelevant information to try sway your opinion on a person one way or another that is involved in an ongoing investigation. That is all this is. That is all this is. This does not even mention, by the way, this does not even mention the investigation. It just says, in the aftermath of the investigation, a series of finger-pointing pieces and tweets from media and fans started to circle. Circling Chicago published two stories affirming that Skylar Diggins led several outbursts. Noel Quinn and Skylar Diggins come from an era where this method of coaching was tolerated. Noel Quinn's been the coach since 2021. Jewell Loyd has been an all-W playing under Noel Quinn. Like, what are we talking about? Like, this has no relevance. The only relevance this has is to muddy the waters and make it seem like this entire investigation is because Jewell Loyd is salty. And look, if that is the case, then obviously Jewell Loyd comes out looking bad. But the reality of this is that's not what the investigation is. The investigation is coaching mistreatment of players and threatening players. Obviously, Jewell Loyd, I think, is pissed off at the coach, but that's very different than what they're being investigated for. And now you've got, obviously, the agent coming out and saying that this is literally just a lie. So obviously it's not great, but I'm sorry, like, it's actually getting really, really bad. And this situation has really shown, like, the problem with the WNBA media. And the reality of this is that I hope that this isn't, look, there's very little of your ones Roberta's work that I've read and being like, okay, this is talking about basketball. This is relevant. Like, nothing has been talking about basketball. Nothing's been talking about this situation. But at the end of the day, like, it is a problem when the media have too many have close relationships with players and they're tied to players and teams. Again, we have seen it so often in the NBA that there are certain journalists that are scared to say anything negative about LeBron. There are journalists scared to say anything about X, Y, and Z player. The problem is that it's not a couple in the WNBA, it's all of them. It is all of them. All of their biases depending on the teams. And it's the reason why people in general, I'm guessing is the reason why people go to break stories to Annie Constable, because she will break the story. I can guarantee you so many WNBA journalists probably had information about the Storm situation for weeks. They sat on it because they didn't want to, ruffle feathers because, well, we like Nneka Nwumeke. We like Skylar Diggins. We don't want to ruffle any feathers with the Seattle Storm. We like the Seattle Storm. Oh, Sue Bird's their owner. We like the Storm. But, like, all of those things can be true. But if it's a situation where there's something in the wrong, you got to talk about it. Because that's the only way things move forward. Either way, though, I can guarantee you this is not the last time I talk about the Seattle Storm situation. I can guarantee you some other ridiculous stuff is coming out. But I am glad in a way that all the media bullshit has been coming out with the WNBA, because the more prominent it is in the first year or two of the league being booming, the more that, I hate the way it's going to be dealt with, but the more that this type of journalism is going to be unacceptable. Because the reality of this is that these people are journalists and they talk about things almost like somebody giving a think piece in written form. Like, I cannot believe that an Irish guy that does not plan his videos and just talks off the top of his head, like, somehow seems to have more, like, more careful about what I say than journalists, which should not be the case. And, like, more integrity than some journalists, but it is what it is.